Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Chav Dalet Amud Aleph 11 lines down. Gufa. We said earlier, Marish Lakish, that Rish Lakish said, "Pei Katosh Yomar Tavar Zeh Tanei Aido." He changed what Reb Meir must have said because, and he praised Reb Meir. Like impossible, Reb Meir would say this. He's so kadosh. Now the Gemara says, "And is that so that Rish Lakish would talk so praiseworthy about Reb Meir?" Amar Ula said, "Haroet Rish Lakish ben Midrash, so Rish Lakish ben Midrash, Ki'ilu Akir Harim v'Tohanan Zebazet, as if he's uprooting mountains and he's crushing them against each other." Meaning he was extremely brilliant in how he learned. So why would he be praising Rabbi Meir? Where it says, Maravina, Rabbi Meir ben Drash, Rabbi says it's not a hidush, because Rabbi Meir would take the biggest of mountains and grind each other. Rabbi Meir might have been superior in his knowledge. Gemara says, you know what, Hakamar? We learn from here how Tamil Hamim respect each other and how much they think, how highly they think of each other. Like we said earlier, like we had elsewhere, that you're not, Rabbi Nasi was sitting down and he said that you're not to insulate cold water on Shabbat. You're not to insulate hot, but you're not to do cold because of the Merit Ayin. Rabbi Shmuel said, Abba, my father Rabbi Yosef, Hitir Latmin son, you said you're not to insulate cold water. Rabbi said, okay, if that's the case, what is done is done. He bowed out in deference to the rabbi, and he said, no problem. We'll listen to Rabbi Yossi, it's mutar. Amar Papa and Papa said over there, but let's come see how they hold each other so highly. Because Rabbi Yossi was still alive, he would have been the student to Rabbi. He would have sat in front of Rabbi. That Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, was the one who succeeded his father. And he was sitting in front of Rabbi. But still, when Rabbi heard what Rabbi Yossi said, even though Rabbi Yossi would have sat in front of him as a student, we heard Rabbi Yossi said that, no problem. We hold like him. Very chashub. Amar Rabbi Yoshia. The pasuk says, "I'll take my two sticks. One called a nice stick, one called a hitting stick, a gracious and assaulting stick." This is when a person's that is a chaya. The Navi is talking about how to lead a sheep, a flock of sheep. Yani, there's a good cop, bad cop. There's a harsh and nice way to do things. No, when it says pleasant, this is referring to the Tamil Hamim in Israel who are sweet and nice to each other. When it says the attacking ones, this refers to this Hamim in Bavel who were more rough to each other when they discuss halacha. Similar. So these are the two sons of oil who stood. And he also called them two olive trees. So what does it mean, olive and olive oil? Yitzhar and his oil. This refers to the Tamid Chamim in Israel, who are very nice and smooth to each other, very pleasant, like olive oil. When it says two olive trees, referring to the bitterness of the Tamid Chamim in Bavel, who were very bitter to each other in halacha, like an olive tree. Very interesting concept. We had this in Masechet Kiddushin, V'asa Einai Yoreh V'hinei Shtayim Nashim Yotzot V'ruach V'chafim V'lehenek Kafayim. ואמר למלאך תעבר בי הנה המה וליכות דעיפה ויאמר אלי לבנות לה בית בארץ שנער. This is a pasuk in Zechariah that talks about there were angels with very pompous looking angels with women carrying like a box to bring from heaven to earth, and he asked them, what are you carrying? And they said, we're bringing this to build in Shinar. And we said, what is that box? This refers to a haughtiness and arrogance. They brought these midot, these traits to Bavel. Did arrogance really come to Bavel? More said, 10 measures, 10 portions of arrogance came to the world. Ilam, which refers to Persia, took 9, and 1 out of 10 went to the rest of the world. So we see Elam had the arrogance. The Gemara says no. In the Bavel Nahir, it initially, in the beginning, went to Bavel. And then the arrogant people eventually traveled to Elam. The economic see here as well. It says to build a house of it, to start it in Shinar. Now we see that it started there, but it moved to Elam. More says Siman the Gasot Ruach Aniyut. We say 1 second. We know that arrogance is there when a person is poor, and poverty went to Babel. So those people do not go to Ilam. So how does that work? We're going to say no. My and it would mean that poverty goes hand in hand with arrogance. Is Anib Torah refers to people lacking in Torah knowledge. The thief. Ahot lanu kitanavish lemon loves refers to the woman who can't nurse. Amar Yochanan, what does that mean? Zu Ilam should be lemod lo zachal lamid. It refers to people mithamim in Ilam who were able to learn Torah but were not zoche to teach it. And therefore, versus Babel, which learned and taught, which is a bigger concept. My Babel, what have we learned from Babel? This is Babel is Babel, which means filled or soaked, soaked with Mishnah, Torah, and Talmud. Okay. Baba Hashaki Moshivani Kimete Olam. Marbi Yamiya, the Talmud Babel is referred to Talmud Babel. That is, it's eternal, and they were always confused because they always kept on arguing bitterly. Okay, Amar Lo, we had this Mishnah quoted earlier. If the litigant told the other guy, let my father be a judge, let your father be a judge, let's three shepherds be the judges. Ibn Meir says, he can retract. Rahim say, no, he can't retract. And therefore, if the guy is chayav to swear, the guy told him, instead of swearing a betim, which is a very, very powerful swearing, and the whole process was very, very intense and very heavy. He says, just promise me here, or swear to me here. Outside betim. Rameir says that, you can backtrack that. You say, no, I want a regular shavua. Rahim say, no, you already accepted it, it's too late. When he says that the father can be the judge or your father can be the judge, referring to where you want him to be one out of the three judges. Now, when does that apply that the guy wants to back out is where there's two sides of a coin. There's two sides of a swearing, for example. So there's two litigants. One guy is saying either the guy is swearing to not pay or he's swearing to make the other guy pay. Right? I swear you owe me money, or I swear I don't owe you money. Right? So one's trying to make the guy hayav, one's trying to make the guy patur. Machloket, whether or not you can retract, is only when the guy is forgiving you. I let my dad be the judge, for example, or I swear, let the shavua work. And if not, you're patur. Yani, if they say you're patur. That's the plaintiff, the defendant, the guy who's trying to get the money actually. But if the case is the guy said, I'll give you the money if I'm chayav according to this judge. Everybody agrees you can retract. Machloket only where I will give is the machloket. That's the question. Is the machloket where the guy said I'll give it to you if I lose? And therefore Rabbi Yochanan would hold lahzor that Rabbi Yochanan would hold it in a case where the guy says I'll forgive it. Your patur will be you can't retract. Or maybe when he said that there's machloket in the case of I'll give you, he meant both cases, forgive and give. Martha Tashma is being proved. The machloket is where he says I'll give you the money. If it's the other litigant says it's forgiven, everybody agrees that you can back out. That makes sense to say that the machloket is where I'll give you but the machloket, there'd be no machloket. Everybody would agree when the guy says, "I'll forgive you," though, your patur, he can't retract. But Rabbi would be saying according to Yochanan, that would make sense. But if you want to say that Rabbi Yochanan says machloket by both, who would Rabbi say it like his opinion? He doesn't agree with Shmuel or Rabbi Yochanan. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan only meaning that there's machloket by only in the case of I'll be chayav, and not the defendant saying you're forgiven. The Gemara says no. Rabbi, not a proof. Maybe he has his own opinion in between. Okay. I have a question. The guy says you're supposed to be chayav, and he says, you know what? Just swear to me outside betin. You don't have to go to the official betin one. Rabbi says you can retract. You can't retract. So we see turn the page. Ding. Maybe the Mishnahs are possibly not referring to the case where the guy has to swear and not pay. That's basically saying you're swearing so that you don't pay, which is basically you swear and I'll forgive the debt. And therefore we see that Rameir would hold that even in that case, you can retract against what Rava said earlier. The Gemara says, no. In Rava it's different. So for the case where it's swearing to take. I swear you owe me money and pay up. That's the case of I will give you. But the first part of the Mishnah already taught you that halacha of incorrect judges or incorrect situations. So we have to have a second case regarding Shavua. Similar concepts. If you are accepting a usually not acceptable judge, we say you're chayav, and you can't retract. And then you're bringing the same machloket regarding a shivua. What's the point? A non-usually accepted shivua, non-swearing? The Gemara says yes. Tanat telebidat aharim. The first case is where you're making the payment dependent on a decision based off of a third party, like the father. And the second case of the shivua is a case where the guy himself is involved. The guy is all dependent on him regarding his shivua, his swearing. You need both cases. If you only want to say that some case where you made other decisions based on others, maybe only in that case the mayor holds that you can retract because he never actually meant to give the money. Because he can say, who says that the guy would have found me chayav? And therefore, he was hoping that he would be patur. Kind of like an asmachta, like we'll see soon. About that's in the case where he says that I'm chayav, he's swearing on himself. Ema, maybe Rameir would agree to Rabbanan that you can't retract because he had in mind, and he had in mind that, I'm in control, and therefore, if he loses, he will be chayav. You mentioned the second case where the guy made his through Shavua. But how come Rabbanan? Maybe only Rabbanan will say you can't retract over there because you might lose. Maybe in the case of the father, which you don't know what the father will judge. Maybe Rabbanan will agree to the mayor that you can retract, and therefore tzricha in both cases teaches the machloket applies to both. Machloket lifnei gemar din. The machloket of retraction only applies before the verdict was given. Everybody agrees after the verdict was given, you cannot retract. Rabbi Yochanan says even after the verdict is given, which is big chidush, you can retract after the verdict was given. Store loser. Did Rabbi Yochanan mean that the machloket is after, but before everybody agrees that you can retract? Or machloket by both before and after verdict? But Rabbi says. If someone said, you know what, let the judge be my relative or someone who's pasul. If it's before the decision, the verdict, he can retract. After the verdict, he can't retract. It makes sense to say that Rabbi Yochanan meant that the machlok is only after the verdict, but before everybody would agree he can retract. Rabbi would then make sense to say that he holds like Rabbi Yochanan through Hachamim. Before and after the verdict about the Markman, who would Rava hold like? Therefore, we must prove from here that the machloka is even only after the verdict, but before he would agree that you can retract. Okay. What do you think? Is the machloka before or after the verdict? Who's the halacha like him? Like who do you pasuk like? Pasuk like Shalach he answered him. The machloket is after the verdict, and before the verdict, everybody agree you can retract. And the halacha pasuk chachamim, you can back out before the verdict. The quote that happened was as follows. He sent the question from Nachman. The machloket in the case of the defendant requesting, "I'll give you the money if you lose," or the guy saying, "I'll forgive you I'll forgive you the loan, the money." Well, the hak did it mean who the hak be like? But Chachamim or Meir. And he answered him, the case is still not a case where the defendant is saying, "I'll give it to you if I lose, I'll pay." And the halacha is according to Chachamim that if you agree to say your patur or you agree to pay it, you can't back out. That's the way they learned it in the surah. It must be the following. And dinner ben Rabbi, please teach us. What's the guy says? If he did a kinyan and he wants to retract before the verdict, I made a kinyan that I'm going to accept the verdict and then I want to retract. Can I retract or not? So usually we can retract before a verdict. But what if he made a kinyan on it? They shook on it. The Gemara says, once you did a kinyan, nothing can do. Even before the verdict, you can no longer retract. Okay. Then these following people are pasul to be a judge or an ayed, the witness. Someone plays with dice, gambler. Someone lends an interest. People who pigeon racing. People who deal with they act like they sell the Shavi'it product. Rabbi Shimon, but initially they were called people who did business with Shemitah products were called Shavi'it gatherers. When the people, the enemies increased, they ended up calling them Shavi'it Shemitah merchants. We'll explain what that means. Rabbi Da, when do these gamblers or these type of people become pasul? Only when they have no other trade, when they have no other business. But if this is their primary source of business, then they're pasul. And they're kashor. Sorry. They have no other business. Sorry. Backtrack. If this is their only business, they are pasul. If they have other business, this is more of a hobby, then they are kasher. Everybody who plays poker, you could take a deep sigh. Mr. Kubia, Mike Avi, what's wrong with playing dice? What's the problem with gambling? Because this famous concept, Sfaradim actually have stuff like this, Ayin Sham. When you are gambling, you might think that you're winning, and therefore, when you lose the money, you didn't have in mind to give him as a kinyan, and therefore, it's kind of a problem of stealing, etc. Because in a smachta, when you're having in mind to do something and you're not having in mind to, you don't think it's going to happen to you, you don't think you're going to lose, then it's not koneh, and therefore you can't do that. It's considered like kind of like stealing. Everybody agrees that it's not an asmachta. The reason why they're disqualified is because they're doing something not productive for the world. My benai, what's the difference? The difference between the two opinions be that if you have another business, and therefore, if you hold the smachta, you still have a problem. But if you have another business and you hold the second opinion, you're not doing anything for the public. You could do other stuff for the public, and you could play. Okay, Utanan, Mishnah said, when you say the pasul, was mentioned they have no other trade except for this. This is their business. We're trying to bring a proof that we see from here the fact that Rabbi says that they have to have another business in order to be kasher. We see that it's about being productive in life. Where it says kasher Rabbi Hamad sounds like a question against Rabbi Hamad. Maybe it's machlok between Chamim and Rabbi Yehuda regarding gambling. Is that considered an asmachta or not? Yeshua ben Levi says, anytime Rabbi Yehuda said before, ematai, when, or ubame, or regarding this, or he's not coming to go against, he's coming to explain them. When he says when, it means he's explaining, and when he's saying what, it's coming to argue. We see, however, that whenever he said ematai, like in our Mishnah, where he explained them, he said ematai, when do we say the pasul? He's explaining them. So therefore, you can't say they're arguing against each other. So Rabbi Hama, Bar Hama, seemingly does not fit with our Mishnah because he says it's more about an isur, where it says Gavra Gavra Karamit, you're asking a question from one right to the next, more savar pligi, more shalom pligi. Rabbi Hama says it's a machlok between Rabbi and Chachamim. The Rabbi says no. Lo plagi is no machloket. But Sanhedrin says ben sheyesh lo umanot shalohu ben she'en lo umanot elohu arei zabatul. According to this opinion, Chachamim in this case, Baraita would say that you are pasul even if there's no other business. So we see that they can be a machloket in our Mishnah. The Gemara says, "Ahi Rabbi Yehuda mishum b'tefon." It's according to Rabbi Yehuda through Torah Tefon. But it says, if the guy says, "I am a Nazir," Rabbi Yehuda Omer mishum Rabbi Tefon. In that case, if the guy says that I'm a Nazir, if that guy is a Nazir, Rabbi Yehuda says nobody's Nazir. So basically, one guy says, I'm a Nazir if he's a Nazir, and the other guy says, I'm a Nazir if he's not a Nazir. So since it's not a clear cut agreement to do Nazirut, it's not. They hold both cases that they're not considered Nazirut because they didn't say they're Nazirut clear cut. It wasn't straightforward. And therefore, our case as well. And the thing is considered as smachta holds like Rabbi Telefon. And Hachamim and Rabbi Yehuda our Mishnah would say that it's not considered a smachta and it's mutar and you're not pasul unless it's your only business.